She was 19 years old when she decided she was going to change the world. Not someday. Not eventually. Now. She dropped out of Stanford, one of the most prestigious universities on the planet, and told her parents she had a vision. A device so small it could sit on a pharmacy counter, draw a single drop of blood from your fingertip, and diagnose hundreds of diseases in minutes. No hospitals. No long needles. No waiting 3 days for results from a lab you would never see. Just answers. It sounded impossible. It sounded like science fiction. To the investors, the senators, the decorated military generals who lined up to fund her, it sounded like the future. Her name was Elizabeth Holmes, and for over a decade, she convinced the entire world she was the next Steve Jobs. She wasn't. She was something far more dangerous. The year was 2003. Silicon Valley was intoxicated with disruption. Every investor, every venture capitalist, every fund manager was hunting for the next idea that would reshape civilization. Elizabeth Holmes knew how to speak that language better than almost anyone who came before her. She founded Theranos at 19. The name was a combination of 2 words, therapy and diagnosis. Simple, clean, like the product she was selling. She had a pitch and it was personal. She was terrified of needles, she said. She had watched people she loved avoid getting tested because they were afraid, because the system was broken, because it was painful and expensive and humiliating. She was going to fix that. She told that story in every boardroom, every press conference, every evening gala where billionaires smiled and wrote checks. She made you feel her fear, and then she handed you her dream. She had a voice, deep, slow, deliberate, that she had trained herself to use. A voice that didn't belong to a 19-year-old. A voice that belonged to someone who had already won. She wore black turtlenecks every single day. A silent, calculated tribute to the man she studied. The man she worshipped. Steve Jobs, the prophet of Silicon Valley. And just like Jobs, she had a reality distortion field. Inside it, nothing was impossible. Inside it, the science didn't have to work yet. It just had to work eventually. Inside it, lying wasn't lying. It was vision. By 2013, Theranos was valued at $9 billion. $9 billion. Elizabeth Holmes appeared on the cover of Forbes, then Time, then Fortune. She became the youngest self-made female billionaire in American history. She sat beside generals and senators at state dinners. She partnered with Walgreens and Safeway, 2 of the largest retail chains in America, to place Theranos machines inside their pharmacies. Millions of real patients walked up to those machines, rolled up their sleeves, offered a drop of blood, and received results. The problem was devastatingly simple. The machine didn't work. It never worked. Not the way she described it. Not even close. Theranos was running the majority of its tests on conventional laboratory equipment, the same machines every hospital in America already used. The revolutionary proprietary technology. The miniaturized miracle she had built her entire empire on was a fabrication, a carefully constructed, meticulously maintained, decade-long fabrication, and people were being hurt. A cancer patient was told her results were normal. They were not. A healthy person was told they showed markers for HIV. They did not. A pregnant woman received false positives that sent her into a spiral of fear and unnecessary procedures. These were not statistical errors. They were not isolated incidents. They were the predictable consequence of a system that was never designed to deliver accurate results, only the appearance of accuracy. Inside Theranos, some employees knew, some had always known, and some tried to speak. They were silenced with legal threats, non-disclosure agreements, and a culture of fear that Elizabeth and her partner, a man named Ramesh Balwani, had constructed with the same precision she applied to everything else. One employee who tried to speak was Tyler Shultz. His grandfather was George Shultz, former United States Secretary of State, one of the most influential members of Theranos' own board of directors. Tyler lasted 8 months before the wait became too much. He went to the California Department of Public Health. He sent letters. He tried to warn anyone who would listen that the tests were wrong, that patients were being misled, that the entire foundation was hollow. Elizabeth found out. She sent lawyers after him within days. But you cannot silence the truth forever. In October 2015, investigative journalist John Carreyrou published a story in the Wall Street Journal. One story. That was all it took. The headline was measured, clinical, almost quiet. It simply asked whether Theranos technology worked the way the company claimed. Within 24 hours, the empire began to fracture. Federal regulators descended on the labs. Inspectors documented what they found: a facility operating outside basic safety standards, tests producing results that deviated wildly from verified benchmarks, a laboratory that should never have been cleared to serve patients. By 2016, Theranos was banned from operating clinical labs in America. The machines were shut down. The partnerships with Walgreens and Safeway dissolved overnight. The $9 billion company was worth nothing, not a fraction of its valuation, not even the machines, nothing. And Elizabeth Holmes, the visionary, the revolutionary, the woman who was going to change medicine forever, was indicted on federal fraud charges. The trial lasted months. Her defense was extraordinary, and in a way almost poetic. She claimed she had been a victim herself, that Balwani had psychologically controlled her, manipulated her, shaped every decision she made. The jury listened. They deliberated for 7 days. On January 3, 2022, Elizabeth Holmes was found guilty on 4 counts of criminal fraud against investors. On November 18, 2022, she was sentenced to 11 years and 3 months in federal prison. She appealed. She delayed. She gave birth to 2 children and asked the court for compassion. In May 2023, she surrendered herself to Bryan Federal Prison Camp in Texas. The turtleneck was gone. The voice was gone. The vision was gone. All that remained was a number on a prison uniform. Here is what this story teaches us, and it is not a simple lesson. It is not simply, don't lie. It is this: when you build your entire identity on a performance, on the distance between who you pretend to be and who you actually are, that distance does not stay fixed. It grows. It demands more. More lies to protect the first lie. More silence to bury the last voice that tried to warn you. More energy to sustain an illusion that was never designed to survive contact with reality. Elizabeth Holmes was not a monster. She was something more recognizable and more dangerous. She was a person who believed that if she performed confidence with enough conviction, the world would rearrange itself to match the story she was telling. Didn't. And the karma, the real karma, was not the sentence. It was the moment she had to look at what she had actually built and recognize it for what it was. Not a revolution, not a legacy, not the next Steve Jobs, just a mirror reflecting a person who chose the performance over and over again until the performance became the only truth she knew. Next time, we follow a different kind of genius. A man who assembled the most brilliant financial minds on the planet, 2 Nobel Prize winners at his table, and built a mathematical model he believed had finally eliminated risk from the market forever. His name was John Meriwether, and in 6 weeks, he nearly brought down the entire global financial system. If this story moved you, subscribe, because karma doesn't have favorites, and neither do we.